Welcome to Bike Ride Reviews. Today I'm reviewing the Aurora GRX, a gravel e-bike from the new Canadian brand EBIKECAN. This is the second e-bike that we've tested from EBIKECAN. The first being the Lancet Pro MD, a mid-drive commuter e-bike with a belt drive and hub gearing. I reviewed that in the last video, and I'll put a link to that review in the description below. At $28.99 Canadian or around $2,100 US, with a Shimano GRX groupset and light-duty hub motor and battery, the Aurora GRX electric gravel bike is an interesting proposition. In this review, I'll show you the unboxing process, walk through the bike specifications, and put the Aurora GRX through all of our usual tests to find out how it performs and how it stacks up against similar e-bikes that I've tested. Let's get started. The Aurora GRX arrived well packaged and mostly assembled. I only needed to install the front wheel and adjust and tighten the headset. Like the Lancet Pro MD, the one thing missing from the box was a user manual or assembly instructions. A silly omission for any company that's shipping products to real customers. Never mind one that involves mechanical assembly and the operation and proper handling of electronics. EBIKECAN told me that an assembly video is on the way, but as of the recording of this video, nothing has been released. With the bike assembled and ready to ride, we can take a closer look at the Aurora's specs. Out of the box, this bike looks the part. The rear hub motor is low profile, and the battery is neatly integrated into the down tube for a clean look. The trade-off of this clean look is that the battery isn't removable, so you have to charge it on the bike. Both the frame and fork are aluminum alloy, and EBIKECAN only offers a single size, which they say fits riders from 5'7" to 6'4". That's a 9-inch height range, which really isn't realistic for a gravel bike. But I'll come back to that point. The payload capacity is 245 pounds, and EBIKECAN lists the weight at 44 pounds. Now on my scale, it came in slightly under that at 43.44 pounds. Considering Ride 1UP's CF Racer 1 is roughly the same price, but weighs only 29 pounds, I'd consider this bike to be heavy for its category. This is a Class 1 e-bike, so it doesn't have a throttle, and pedal assist cuts off at 32 kilometers an hour. The motor is Bafeng's RM G0100, rated at 250 watts continuous power and 40 Newton meters max torque. Pedal assist is managed by a torque sensor, and power comes from a 36 volt 7 amp hour battery. With the 2 amp charger, it takes 3.5 hours to fully charge the battery. The display is a full color LCD, and there's a 2-button control pad on the handlebars. The battery and electronics are UL certified, and the bike has an IP65 rating, which means it'll handle heavy rain without issue. The Aurora rolls on 28-inch aluminum alloy rims that are wrapped in 40mm Kenda quick drumlin gravel tires. These have Kenda's K-Shield puncture protection. EBIKECAN doesn't list a max tire clearance, but I estimate that you could fit up to 46mm rubber on this. It's worth mentioning the axles, which include a front quick release and a rear nutted axle. For a modern gravel bike, I'd expect to see through axles for their improved stiffness and easier wheel alignment. The drivetrain is made up of a Shimano GRX rear derailleur, a 42-tooth Pro wheel crankset, and an 11-speed 11 to 42-tooth Dior XT cassette. The brakes are Shimano's GRX RX 440 hydraulic discs with 160mm rotors front and rear. Finally, the cockpit is a 420mm aluminum bar with flared drops, wrapped in an attractive tape. The saddle is a gravel-specific Cell Royale Light Series saddle, and the pedals are basic aluminum platforms. A kickstand is included as well as a front light. There's no rear light or fenders included, but EBIKECAN does sell a fender kit for $26 Canadian. The first thing that I noticed after hopping on the Aurora GRX was the ride position, which is quite low and aggressive. The geometry numbers suggest a moderate endurance setup with a 17.1-inch reach and a 22-inch stack. but at 6 feet tall with a 33-inch inseam and the saddle height set to my height, I found that the ride position was quite aggressive, and I'm very bent over. It feels closer to some of the aero road bikes I've ridden than to a gravel bike. The single size is clearly the problem here. In my opinion, this frame is obviously suited to a shorter rider, or at least someone with a shorter inseam to get that more endurance style fit. I don't see someone who's 6'4" comfortably riding this bike without being extremely low and aggressive. So I'm not positive that it's going to reach the full height range that EBIKECAN claims. During my rides, I've found that the hub motor and the torque sensor pair together very well, and they offer smooth and intuitive assist that's really well matched to your pedal input. There's none of that on-off feeling that you normally get with a rear hub motor. So that torque sensor is really combining nicely, and it's hiding the rear hub attributes. Having said that, the assist is fairly light, and you really feel it most when you're accelerating hard on flats or when you're climbing a hill and you can kind of tell that you're getting that assist. I've found that the Aurora really struggles to reach its top speed of 32 kilometers an hour or 20 miles per hour comfortably without having to pedal really hard. The bike feels like it really wants to cruise closer to 25 kilometers an hour unless you're really pushing. I've found that the assistance is well spread out across the 5 levels. Level 1 is extremely light. Level 3 is kind of a nice mix, as it should be, giving you light assistance but also feeling like you're putting in a good amount of work. And level 5 is obviously giving you the most assistance, and you can feel it pushing you along. On non-technical terrain, the bike handles well, and it corners with confidence. But overall, it does feel kind of slow and heavy. And the geometry is not a great match for technical gravel riding. The Aurora GRX looks the part, but it's more of an all-road e-bike for some light off-roading than a true gravel machine. The full aluminum frame set really doesn't soak up chatter and impacts very well. And you can really feel all impacts through the handlebars and that seat. If this was my bike, I'd be looking to upgrade to some 46 millimeter tires to add a little bit more comfort to this ride. And also, this low aggressive kind of ride position that I'm in is not the most comfortable for longer rides, especially if I'm looking at more of an endurance or recreational style gravel riding. I'd like to be in a little bit more of an upright endurance style position. That'd bring a lot more comfort and make it easier to kind of enjoy a few hours in the saddle on this bike. Now, I've got no complaints about those GRX brakes. They didn't have any brake fade. They've given me some really smooth and reliable braking throughout testing, and they've got great lever feel and modulation. The drivetrain, GRX drivetrain as well, I've had no issues with. Shifting has been crisp and clean, and it has not been bouncing around thanks to that integrated clutch that you've got on there. Now, another minor annoyance for me were these pedal assist controls. They were located up here, right where your hands go on the hoods previously. They got in the way, and I found that I would sometimes knock off the little rubber band and have it dangling, and then I'd have to stop and fix it. I solved that issue by relocating them down lower on the bars here. So you just have to move your hands down to click them, but at least they don't get accidentally pressed or knocked off. And I find that it's not annoying having the rubber bands under my hands. It's a personal preference thing for me. And finally, there's no user manual that arrived with this bike. So when it came time for me to dive into the settings and figure out how to use it, I was on my own. And I really didn't have a very easy time. I could figure out how to move the pedal assist settings up and down. I figured out how to turn on the front light, but that was about it. I had to reach out to EBIKECAN, and they sent me a manual for the display. But this should really be supplied with the bike, not after a user has to actually reach out and ask when they're trying to use the device. So, not great to not have these manuals. I just think that they should take a little bit of extra time and include all the user manuals and instructions that they can so people have a good experience when they get the bike. So what were the highs and the lows with the Aurora GRX? Let's start with what I liked. The Shimano GRX drivetrain and brakes are the standout feature of this bike. Throughout testing, the shifting was crisp. The drivetrain was quiet, and the wide gearing range was more than enough for the steepest climbs that I tackled. The brakes also performed flawlessly. The Aurora's hub motor and torque sensor deliver impressively refined pedal assist. The power comes on smoothly when you start pedaling. It consistently matches your effort and tapers off gradually as you hit top speed. You'd expect this kind of finesse from a more expensive mid-drive system, but getting it from a hub drive e-bike at this price is uncommon, and it improves the overall ride quality in a really meaningful way. The Aurora GRX looks like a gravel bike, not an e-bike. The slim battery is neatly hidden inside the down tube. The rear hub motor isn't obvious, and the frame has clean lines. If you don't want your e-bike to look like an e-bike, there aren't so many brands that do it this well at this price point. My first con, and the biggest issue with this bike, is the single size option. EBIKECAN claims that it fits riders from 5'7" to 6'4", but the fit isn't right for me at 6 feet. With the saddle set to the correct height for me, the riding position feels very aggressive. Most true gravel bikes are offered in 4 to 6 sizes, because riding the appropriate frame size is key to being comfortable, and it plays an important role in how the bike handles for you. My second con is that the display shows battery as both a percentage and a 5-bar graphic. Now, during testing, the percentage was unreliable. For example, it went from 98% down to 89% within the first mile. And on a steep climb, it plunged from 80% to 46%, before recovering back to 78% at the top. Some fluctuation is normal, especially with a small battery. But these fluctuations are massive and could be the cause of range anxiety. I know they caused me some. And finally, there were a few minor issues that left a bad overall impression for this bike. Firstly, the lack of an owner's manual and assembly instructions. Secondly, I found brake fluid leaking from the right brake lever, caused by a damaged brake line. That's a quality control defect that should have been caught before shipping. EBIKECAN did respond quickly and sent replacement parts, but the average buyer would need to take the bike to a mechanic to make this repair. On our gradual hill climb with a 6% average gradient, the Aurora GRX took 3 minutes 56 seconds to cover the 0.99 miles, averaging 14.8 miles per hour. That result put it 4th out of our 5 250-watt hub drive comparison bikes. On the steeper test hill, the Aurora took 3 minutes and 19 seconds, putting it in 2nd place of the 5 bikes, a much better result than in the gradual climb. On this climb, having the wide gearing range really helped, as it was able to maintain a steady, high cadence and get the most out of the motor. From a standstill, the Aurora GRX reached 20 miles per hour in 8 seconds using max pedal assist. For a 250-watt motor with 40 Newton meters of torque, that's a solid result that puts it in the middle of the pack of comparison bikes. The Aurora doesn't have the surge of a high torque motor, but it builds speed steadily and predictably. EBIKECAN claims 40 to 90 kilometers, or 25 to 56 miles. In our range test at max assist, the battery lasted just 18.1 miles, with 692 feet of elevation gain at a modest average speed of 12.36 miles per hour. For a 252 watt-hour battery, this isn't a bad result, but it's worth considering. Taking that down to pedal assist level 3 in our second range test, the battery lasted 23.56 miles, with 853 feet of elevation gain, at an admittedly slow average speed of 11.1 miles per hour. That's a 30% jump in range, putting the Aurora in second place among the comparison bikes. But I have a feeling that many riders would find this too slow to justify the extra 5.5 miles of range you're getting. Stopping from 20 miles per hour on dry pavement, the Aurora GRX came to a halt in 20 feet. This stopping distance is unremarkable, but perfectly safe. I'd probably change to a larger 180mm front rotor when these rotors need to be replaced. So does the Aurora GRX's performance match its premium look? Well, the shifting is crispy, the gearing range is excellent, and brakes are solid. The pedal assist is smooth and natural, which is something that you don't always find with hub motors at this price. Unfortunately, the Aurora's weaknesses are a little hard to look past. Most notably, the single frame size means that few riders will find the perfect fit. But even those who do will probably find it a little underwhelming as a gravel bike. To add to that, my test bike had a quality control defect, and the omission of an owner's manual and assembly instructions is disappointing. At $28.99 Canadian, the Aurora GRX fails to stand out. But with limited gravel e-bike options available at this price point, it may be one that you're considering. Just be sure that it fits you before you make the purchase. So what do you think of the Aurora GRX? Let me know in the comments. And if you own any of EBIKECAN's models, I'd love to hear your experience. If you're still looking for your next bike, check out bikeride.com. We have hundreds of reviews, plus search tools and curated best bike lists. Find ride events near you, brush up with our repair guides, or discuss bikes in our forums. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for our next review.